On a sweltering morning in Fremont, Iowa, the bus terminal smelled of engine oil, sun-baked pavement, and tired decisions. The plastic seats stuck to passengers' skin, and the overhead fans squeaked uselessly against the heat. At the ticket window, Lauren Bailey leaned her forearm on the counter, scanning schedules through eyes that hadn't known rest in 2 nights. Her shift had started at 7, and already she felt the hours pressing into her chest like bricks. She had barely made it in on time. Her babysitter had called at dawn, apologizing through groggy breath. Sick herself. Couldn't come. That left Lauren with a choice: miss work and risk her already fragile employment, or bring her daughter with her and pray the day passed without incident. She wrapped her 4-year-old in a thin, flowered blanket, packed a small bottle of juice, cough syrup, and a stuffed rabbit missing one ear. Then she walked the 4 blocks to the station, carrying Hannah's weight as if it were more than just a child in her arms. By the time they arrived, sweat had dampened the edges of Hannah's hair, and her cheeks were flushed. The terminal was nearly empty, just 2 early travelers hunched over paper cups of vending machine coffee. Lauren gave a tight nod to her coworker on the night shift, then gently placed her daughter on the cushioned seat closest to the station fan. The chair bore a small, worn sign, reserved for veterans. The lettering was faded, the laminate peeling at the corners. Lauren hesitated. She looked around. The other chairs were cracked or metal, too hot to touch. This one was clean, under the fan, and padded enough for a child already weakened by fever and relentless coughing. She adjusted the blanket, set Hannah's juice beside her, and whispered a quiet promise to be nearby. Then she turned back to her window, tied on her badge, and resumed work. An hour passed. The terminal buzzed with low voices and occasional shouts from the platform. Someone dropped a suitcase and cursed. The buses came and went, their hydraulic brakes hissing in defiance of the heat. Lauren kept her focus, punching tickets, answering questions. Her eyes flicked back to Hannah every few minutes. Still asleep. Still coughing, but quieter now. Some passengers stared. A few muttered beneath their breath as they passed. She shouldn't be here. Poor child, baking in this heat. But none offered help. None asked questions. Then, just before noon, a man entered the terminal wearing a vintage U.S. Air Force jacket. It clung tightly to his shoulders, as if the memories inside were too heavy to carry loosely. He walked with a visible limp, a creak in each step that echoed against the tile. His eyes scanned the terminal like a soldier sweeping a room, slow, deliberate, assessing. When he spotted Hannah curled up on the reserved chair, his expression hardened. He approached slowly, his boots clicking against the floor. Lauren noticed him just as he stopped by the seat. He pointed at the sign and looked toward her. His face did not carry anger, but something sterner, offense wrapped in years of discipline. "That seat's for veterans," he said. Lauren stepped away from the counter, smoothing her hands down the front of her station-issued polo. "I know," she said, her voice hushed, her exhaustion barely masked. "My daughter's sick. Just for today. She won't be here long." The man didn't move. He looked at the sleeping girl, then back at the sign, then again at Lauren. Rules mattered to him deeply. In his eyes, the seat represented more than comfort. It was a symbol. And symbols, to some, are more sacred than the circumstances that challenge them. "I can offer you my own chair," Lauren added, motioning to the stool behind the counter. The man didn't take it. Instead, he stepped back, arms folded, shaking his head. Another traveler, younger, watching from the vending machine, pulled out a phone. Quietly. Without permission. A click. A brief video. Lauren's posture, weary but firm. The veteran's frown. The child, oblivious to the moment's weight, shifting under the blanket. No one recorded the child's fever. No one captured the babysitter's cancellation. No one zoomed in on the threadbare backpack containing cough syrup and crackers. Only the optics, only the frame. By 2 p.m., the video had reached 5,000 views. By 3:30, it was 10 times that. The caption changed everything. Cashier kicks veteran out of waiting area for her own convenience. Shared. Commented. Judged. The manager called Lauren into the back office before the end of her shift. He didn't look her in the eye. On the desk lay a printed screenshot *T of the video, with the comment section highlighted in red pen. Accusations. Outrage. One called her un-American. Another demanded she be fired. "I'm sorry, Lauren," he said, not unkindly, but with the detachment of someone choosing policy over people. "This reflects poorly on the company. We can't keep you on." Lauren said nothing. What was there to say? She gathered her things, folded the blanket, lifted Hannah, still flushed, still quiet, and walked out into the boiling air. The sky outside was cloudless, white-hot, and humming with cicadas. Her shoes tapped the sidewalk in slow rhythm, like a drumbeat to a march she hadn't signed up for. A termination letter was folded neatly in her pocket. It crinkled every time she shifted Hannah's weight. No one followed her. No one asked what had really happened. She crossed the intersection at Hawthorne and Main. A few cars rolled past. One driver slowed down, rolled down his window, and shouted something indistinct. The wind swallowed it, but the tone was unmistakable. Hannah stirred and coughed again, then rested her head against her mother's shoulder. Lauren walked on. Not once did she look back. The apartment smelled faintly of menthol, crayons, and uncertainty. The fan on the ceiling turned slowly, as if each rotation required negotiation. Lauren sat at the kitchen table, her back hunched, her eyes locked on the spread of envelopes in front of her. Red stamps. Due dates. Medical receipts from the clinic. One utility bill with the corner torn, the ink smudged by the water from Hannah's spilled juice. It had been 7 days since she lost her job. 7 days of waiting for callbacks that never came, of watching her phone like it held the answers to a question she didn't understand. She had applied to 17 positions, everything from diner waitress to night shift custodian at the high school. No interviews. No return calls. Her name had been passed around in whispers. She had become a symbol, but not the kind that opens doors. A handful of acquaintances stopped replying. Even the woman at the pharmacy had offered her change with something tighter than politeness. Each morning, Lauren walked Hannah to the community health clinic and back, then applied for jobs during nap time, checking for updates with a kind of fragile hope she knew was unsustainable. At night, she lay awake in the small bedroom they shared, listening to her daughter's uneven breathing and wondering how close the edge truly was. On the 7th morning, the air was heavy with the kind of silence that made every sound louder. Hannah had fallen asleep on the couch after another rough night, her forehead still warm. Lauren stood at the window with a mug of stale coffee, watching the street below. The mug had a chip on the rim she always avoided. It used to be her husband's. The sudden sound of tires outside startled her. A vehicle pulled to a stop, a dark blue SUV with government plates, large and polished, the kind of car that never turned onto her street by accident. She leaned forward slightly, her heart lifting and sinking in the same motion. The front door opened. A man stepped out, tall, in crisp military dress blues. His presence was immediate, like gravity had walked up the steps. He knocked, not loudly but firmly. She opened the door halfway, unsure what to expect. The man removed his cap. His eyes, serious but kind, scanned her face. "Mrs. Bailey?" he asked. "Yes?" "I'm Captain Tom Bauer. May I come in?" Her body remained still for a second too long. Then she nodded, stepping aside. Inside, the captain looked briefly at the living room, the makeshift toy corner, the blanket on the couch, the stack of job applications on the counter. He didn't comment. Instead, he opened a folder he had carried under his arm and placed it gently on the table. "I was at the terminal that day," he said, quietly. "In the far corner." Lauren's breath caught in her throat. "I saw everything. From the moment you arrived to the moment you left." He waited. She said nothing. She hadn't spoken about that day to anyone, not even to herself. I didn't step in, he continued. I should have. I've thought about that every day since. He opened the folder, revealing a set of documents, official, stamped, formatted with the unmistakable weight of bureaucracy. But there was something else, too, a small, folded uniform in a neutral tan tone, a name badge, and an envelope. We have a new pilot program through the Army, Captain Bauer explained. It's designed to support military families. We're recruiting civilian family support advisors. People who understand sacrifice. People who can listen, advocate, and help us improve how we care for our own. Lauren furrowed her brow, her hand resting on the back of a chair. I'm not military. Yes, you are, he replied. You're the widow of Sergeant Mitchell Bailey. Helicopter mechanic. K** led during a training flight in Colorado Springs. His name's in our records. Lauren blinked hard. No one had said her husband's name aloud in nearly 3 years. The program offers training, the captain continued, along with a housing allowance, health care for dependents, and flexible scheduling for childcare. We've also arranged transportation to Fort Bennett. Orientation begins this Monday. Your name was submitted by a veteran who encountered you at the terminal. Sergeant Roy Maddox. Lauren stared at him, stunned. Roy requested this be reviewed after he saw the backlash you faced. He's not proud of how he handled the situation. But he wanted to make it right. She reached for the envelope. Inside was a printed offer letter, a welcome packet, and directions to the base. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, he said. Just decide whether the world's judgment will write your future, or whether you will. He stood to leave, placing the cap back on his head with precise dignity. We'll expect you at Fort Bennett. Monday at 0800. Then he paused. Mrs. Bailey, this is not charity. It's recognition. He nodded once, then left. The door clicked shut behind him. Lauren stood alone in the small apartment. Her fingers trembled as they brushed the soft fabric of the uniform. It was the first time in days she had touched something that felt like possibility. Across the room, Hannah stirred on the couch. The stuffed rabbit tumbled to the floor. Lauren picked it up, tucked it back under her daughter's arm, and sat beside her. She stayed there a long time. Not to think. Just to breathe. Because for the first time in a long while, the future had opened its hand. And she was still standing. 2 mornings later, just after sunrise, Lauren stood at the checkpoint gate of Fort Bennett with Hannah's small hand folded into hers. A duffel bag hung from her shoulder, and her daughter's stuffed rabbit peeked from the top. The base stretched wide before them, rows of red brick buildings, trimmed grass, and the low hum of drills and orders in the distance. The morning air was cooler here, carried by the rhythm of motion, marching feet, distant cadence calls, and the mechanical whir of training exercises far off. She wore the new civilian uniform provided in the packet, a neutral blouse with crisp seams, modest slacks, and a lightweight coat bearing a small embroidered emblem, Family Resilience Program, Fort Bennett. It wasn't armor, but it felt like one. A young soldier at the front gate looked up from his clipboard as they approached. His stance shifted slightly when he recognized the name. Lauren Bailey, he asked. Yes. You're expected. Captain Bauer left word. He gestured toward a nearby jeep. They'll take you to Building 8. Orientation starts at 0830. Lauren helped Hannah into the passenger seat and buckled her in, then slid into the back, her mind quietly taking stock of the moment. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't walking toward judgment. She was being welcomed. The jeep rolled slowly through the heart of the base. Soldiers jogged in neat rows, arms pumping in unison, sweat already streaking their backs. Flags rustled in the wind. From a small playground near a daycare center, children's laughter floated across the morning air. Inside Building 8, a long conference hall had been prepared. Folded flags lined the walls. A projection screen displayed the Family Resilience Program's logo in warm, gentle colors. Chairs were arranged in arcs instead of rows. Coffee and juice stood on a side table, next to coloring books and crayons for children. Lauren stepped inside, her hand still wrapped around Hannah's. There were about 30 people present, mostly women, some men, ranging in age and background. Several had children beside them. The air in the room was quiet, but not cold. It held something else, the kind of silence that knows pain and respects it. Then, from a side entrance, a figure emerged. The same man from the terminal. Sergeant Roy Maddox. His hair was thinner now, his shoulders slightly hunched, but the Air Force jacket was unmistakable. This time, it was unzipped, revealing a pressed blue shirt beneath it. He paused when he saw her, and then removed his cap, holding it tightly in his withered hands. He walked forward, slow but purposeful. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said softly. "But I learned who you were, and I needed to be here." Others turned to look. Lauren said nothing, but she nodded once. Then someone stepped to the podium, a woman with the steady gaze of command and the voice of someone used to briefing generals. She introduced herself as Commander Elise Tanaka, Director of Fort Bennett's Civilian Outreach Division. She spoke of the new initiative, its goals, its roots, and then turned her attention to Lauren. "Many of you know fragments of what happened last week. You may have seen the video. You may have heard assumptions." The screen flickered. A still image appeared, Lauren, holding Hannah, walking out of the terminal. "But you didn't see the whole story," Commander Tanaka said. "You didn't see that Lauren Bailey is a widow. That her husband served our country until the very last hour of his life. You didn't see that she brought her child to work because she had no other option, and that she gave up her own dignity to protect her daughter's health." The screen changed again. A photograph now. Sergeant Mitchell Bailey. Dress uniform. His smile wide, a wrench tucked under one arm, a helicopter blurred in the background. In the front row, Lauren sat unmoving, her hand resting on Hannah's shoulder. "No one ever thanked her," the commander continued. "Until today." She stepped down from the podium and held out a certificate, ivory paper edged in gold, bearing both military and civilian seals. Across the top, in quiet lettering, "Recognition of integrity and maternal courage." The room rose to its feet. Not out of obligation, but out of something deeper. Lauren stepped forward. Even as she accepted the certificate, her eyes never left her daughter's face. That moment, silent but full, stretched long in the heart of everyone watching. For the first time, her husband's name was honored in public. His sacrifice spoken aloud. Her choice to remain silent all these years, to never bring it up at work, to never use it to gain sympathy, was now framed not as secrecy, but quiet strength. Roy Maddox bowed his head. Others clapped gently. Even those who had once shared the viral post stood now, hands folded in front of them, unsure how to meet her eyes. She didn't demand their apology. She didn't need to. Because something larger than apology was happening now. She had come to the gates of Fort Bennett unsure if she would belong. But inside this room, among widows, spouses, children, and those who had lost just as much, she no longer felt alone. She felt seen. In the weeks that followed, Lauren settled into her new rhythm with the quiet determination of someone who had known too much unpredictability to take peace for granted. She was assigned a modest office in the Family Resilience Wing of Fort Bennett, room 112, second floor, just down the hall from the Grief Counseling Unit. A small window overlooked the training field. Her desk was simple, a government-issued laptop, a cup of pens, and a photo of Hannah in a paper frame she had colored herself. Her job began with listening. Military spouses, newly relocated families, mothers trying to navigate deployment schedules and toddlers at once, all walked through her door, uncertain, guarded. Lauren greeted each one with the same gentle presence she had once offered behind the bus terminal glass. She never rushed their stories. Never presumed. She understood, in her bones, what it meant to keep going without being asked how. Word spread quickly. She wasn't a therapist, but she spoke the language of survival. She created new worksheets in plain English. replaced complex benefit forms with one-page guides written by hand. When someone couldn't find a sitter for a session, she added a toy box to her office and moved a chair so the child could sit close. The base commander took notice. So did other installations. Soon, she was asked to deliver workshops, sessions titled Resilience in the Quiet Moments and Caregivers Are Warriors Too. Attendees spilled into the halls. Other bases requested recordings. Lauren refused to be filmed. Instead, she traveled. Hannah went with her when possible, sitting in the back of the room with her drawing pad and stuffed rabbit. The children always found her first. One day, while preparing slides for a session in Maryland, Lauren added a new image, 2 photographs, side by side. The first showed her carrying Hannah out of the terminal, eyes lowered, a termination letter barely visible in her pocket. The second captured her speaking before a room of uniformed families, the family resilience seal projected behind her, Hannah sitting cross-legged at her feet. Beneath them, in simple type: same woman. Different moment. Both true. It became her signature. Soon after, the Army officially adopted the materials as part of their onboarding for military spouses. Other branches followed. The Pentagon requested an executive summary. The program expanded into a formal curriculum called the Bailey Method. It introduced ideas that, in policy rooms, felt revolutionary, but in Lauren's world were just common sense. Child-parent workspaces. Extended hours for childcare. Immediate job protection for caregivers after sudden deployments. Her once silent story became the seed that bloomed into a network of quiet defenders. 6 months in, she was promoted to program director for family resilience. She hired 5 new staff members, all survivors, all caregivers. Each of them brought a unique burden, and each turned it into service. They met every Monday morning over plain bagels and coffee, beginning the day by reading anonymous letters from those they'd helped. Most were short. Some were scribbled in crayon. All of them reminded Lauren why she had stayed. One evening, as winter approached, Lauren arrived home late. Hannah had fallen asleep in the back seat. She parked outside their new duplex just off base and was about to lift her daughter out when she noticed something on the front step. A wooden plaque, propped gently against the door. Burned into the surface were 5 words. "Family is our strongest defense." She picked it up slowly. Beneath it lay an envelope, thick with signatures. Inside was a card, handwritten, signed by 40 veterans, including Sergeant Roy Maddox. Along with it was a photograph of her late husband, Mitchell, in full uniform, standing beside his helicopter, grease on his hands and a grin that hadn't faded with memory. They didn't write to apologize. They wrote to honor her. Each signature was a testament, not to her suffering, but to her strength. The woman once dismissed as a public problem had become the very advocate families hadn't known they needed. And she had done it not by demanding recognition, but by offering understanding. The next morning, Lauren placed a plaque on the shelf behind her desk. Every new visitor saw it first. There was no speech, no explanation. Just those 5 words, carrying more truth than any manual. And when someone inevitably asked how it all began, Lauren would simply gesture to the seat across from her and say, "It started the day I stopped defending myself and started defending others." Because protecting your child should never cost you your dignity. Because real strength walks quietly, without applause. And because second chances are never just given. They are earned, in silence, in service, and in kindness without condition.